This is Coda Radio, episode 204 for May 9th, 2016. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our absolutely structured, designed, and sometimes objectional, but always passionate, Mr. Michael Dominic. Hello, Mike!
Listen, Chris. We're going to refactor healthcare.gov, and Canada is going to pay for it.
I do whine because I want to win.
I think that's brilliant. That's your platform for today's episode of Coda Radio. I see. Mr. Dominic, it's good to be back here with you. It was brought to my attention just before we started the show that we are a mere 4 or 5 weeks away from our 4-year mark on the money. How about that?
4 years of Coda Radio.
Boom. Podcasting.
The show has gotten worse every year.
Oh, we try. We try. Yeah. Eventually, we'll stop tricking people into tuning in. I actually, before we lose the audience, have a question for them, because this has got to be, I'm not even pandering, this has got to be something that our audience struggles with. During Linux Fest Northwest, I seem to develop a particular nasty case of RSI. And I guess it turns out I did a little Googling, as we all do. Mm-hmm. And I discovered that you are more likely to develop RSI doing some of the standard repetitive tasks that you do if you are doing them under a high stress load, which is exactly what I was doing during Linux Fest. I was working under a very high stress load. And so now I have had it's been so bad sometimes that I'm having a hard time carrying beverages or opening doors and things like that. So it's been awful. Now, it's gotten better. I've started doing some stretches. I saw some YouTube videos. But I just put that out there to the audience. If anybody in the audience knows what I could do to help with old RSI, I got to imagine it's got to be the Coda Radio audience. So,
what kind of keyboard do you have? I used to get it pretty bad.
I have a whole range of keyboards I use, from laptop keyboards, where it's definitely the worst, Mike, is laptop.
Yeah, you don't want to be like my laptop's a MacBook. You don't work on your laptop.
Yeah,
right?
It's really bad on the laptops. And then I have, of course, I have just standard QWERTY keyboards everywhere else. My favorite is my Logitech.
Spend a little bit of money. It's not a lot. I think it's like $100, and get a DOS keyboard, mechanical keyboard.
But that's going to make my RSI better, huh?
Something about it versus the standard laptop keyboard, even on like the MacBooks, which are supposed to be the better keyboards, it's significantly better. Huh. Now, of course, the minute you unplug your laptop and start typing on it, you're going to be like, what kind of barbarism is this? But hey. Now,
I know you're a busy man with the unborn child, or with the recently born child, I should say.
Recently born?
Yeah.
Definitely.
I hate to go after a new father about his attractiveness, but last week you sounded much more intimate to me, like you were up against that mic more.
Do you know why? Because it was a different mic, baby.
Oh, I see. So you got multiple recording locations, like reporting live on the scene, essentially, is what that I love. I'm all about that, Mike. And now what you're telling me is it's flavor we're getting because you're on location. Chris is on board. Now we have context. Speaking of context, could you give me a little to this second Oracle versus Google trial? Because I think I like your take pretty much better than everybody else's take, and it's getting a lot of press. And Ars Technica is spinning this as Swift just randomly came up on my screen. I was scrolling the Ars Technica article, and a Swift logo just randomly, which is almost, I wonder if it's a sign about where Google's going. But anyways, this Ars Technica article spins this as anyone who's ever written anything that talks to an API should be worried, and that all of coding, as they put it, is in jeopardy. What do you think?
No. So this is brought to us by the butter bullshit. Okay, so here's the deal. You can't copy and paste people's code and not get sued. You can, but you'll probably get sued, right? The issue is not that Google implemented, or rather, this is a distinction. The issue is not using Oracle's API, right? Because anyone can do that for the most part, for Java at least.
That's why the API is there, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
The issue is that Google literally, this case is so old now that a lot of the details have kind of gotten
I know, it's ridiculous. Well, because just to give it some perspective,
Yeah.
Oracle bought Sun Microsystems in freaking 2009 with the intention of this
suing
lawsuit
Google.
all along. So that gives you perspective.
This was the value prop because Sun, and
Right.
I don't want to
So
get
that's
into
when this whole ball. That's how old this is now. That's when this started getting rolling.
And if you remember, there was a smoking gun years ago, but Sun just never cared. And that was that one Google engineer who, obviously names were never named, copy and pasted. I believe the report was like directly copy and pasted stuff. And it still had the Sun Microsystems heading in it and everything.
Yeah, there was some. Now all of that's been cleaned up.
Yeah, well, of course it's been cleaned up, but it doesn't mean you didn't do it, right? Like, if I hit you with my car and then, but I paid your medical costs.
No, hold on. It's not a car hit. It is not like hitting you with your car. It is you released open code and somebody else is copying it. It's not like somebody is hitting you.
There is a license on what is, open source doesn't mean no copyright, right? And that's exactly what this is.
Right. Okay. Good point. Yeah, there was a copyright in place.
I am not an attorney, but it's funny when I read tech sites about this. It's the sky is falling. First of all, this has no material impact on really anybody. The only thing that could possibly happen is Google may switch to the Open JDK, right? Because reasons. The problem again is literally copying Sun's code. That's the root problem. It's not even a patent lawsuit. It is simply copyright, like the most basic IP protection you could possibly have. So one really interesting facet about this is on tech sites, there's a whole bunch of FUD about, oh my God, you're going to get sued if you're using Java on your server. And that's nonsense. You are licensed to use Java on your server. That license happens to cost $0. That is the deal. But I've read a couple, and I'll try to find links before you publish the show.
Okay.
But attorneys, like IP attorneys, reviewing the case, and to them, this is the dumbest open and shut case on the planet. A stupid junior employee at Google, and I'm not saying the person's stupid, but made a dumb mistake, right? Someone made a mistake, got caught, and Oracle is being a little greedy, and instead of just saying, you made a mistake, pay us some money, they're saying, you made a mistake, pay us a lot of money. That's it. Like, that is the core of this case. It would be like if I did an app for Jupiter Broadcasting and I didn't realize that the GitHub project I pulled in wasn't MIT licensed, right? And it was, actually proprietary, but the person didn't have a private repo. And them trying to sue me for $1 million. It's ridiculous, right? The lawsuit is arguably disproportionate to the value that Google actually gained from it, particularly because Java was not the only option, but Google engineers picked Java partially for technical reasons, but we talked about this a couple weeks ago.
And I guess if they had done an exact implementation if they had taken Sun software, or I guess Oracle software, at the time it was Sun's, and had licensed it and did it.
Well, they could have just paid Sun and done whatever they wanted. So this is the other thing. Google could have called Sun and offered to pay them. And didn't do it because, they're Google and they don't like software to cost money. So
well, yeah. But was that decision made? Was that decision made before Google acquired Android?
But yeah.
Of course, I suppose once you acquire it, you're aware of all these things.
Once you acquire it, you're on the hook, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I do want to get off this because the story is so overblown that it's kind of comical. But Sun Microsystems was a company towards the end that had a lot of amazing technology and really no way to make money. Like, honestly.
Well, here's where. Well, I mean, Sun had a great platform. I mean, they had the Spark system. They had Solaris.
The Spark system. I mean, when, right? Think about say 5 to 0 years from when Oracle bought Sun. Spark system was not going nearly as strong, right? I mean, IBM's on the heels. HP was killing it, right? To use the startup parlance. Imagine a world where Sun had decided to simply somehow monetize Java a little better. I think everybody would be a lot happier. I think Java would be actually in a much better place than it is now. It would be, seeing a lot less what it seems like brain drain, but I'm not sure how much of that is real and how much of that is just people blogging and trying to drum up leads for their own consulting businesses. But yeah. if you believe your RSS feed, Java's having quite the brain drain. And, Oracle is not a good guy. I'm not suggesting they're a good guy. I'm just saying Google's not innocent. That's it. Like,
I do tend to agree with you. Where I'm getting a bit of a disconnect is definitely getting represented in the tech press as this is going to decide the future of APIs, and the results of this case could become disastrous. And in fact, the line that Ars Technica uses, it's a real beauty in here. I wish I could read it, but essentially it says it's going to fundamentally change software development forever.
You know what is a more material threat to software developers, particularly independent developers? That crazy-ass Lodsys company that was suing everybody for
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
They are a more material, much more realistic threat that the sheriff's going to show up at your door with a receipt.
So to be fair, it is okay. So this Ars Technica does sort of imply this is going to be awful for developers. A few paragraphs down from what I'm about to read, but the quote that was the most reactionary actually came from the EFF, and it said. In regards to this case, it's really going to create a radical shift in how software is developed worldwide, according to Mike Schultz, the attorney for Electronic Frontier Foundation. He said in an interview, it requires permission each time APIs are used and code calls other code. Then you've upended, if it requires, then you will upend the economics of software.
Really doesn't. It requires permission if you take someone's API and decide you're going to alter it and call it your own. That requires permission.
Yeah.
Right? It's very similar to this thing in music, right, where they're making these mashup songs out of other songs, and I know there's a word for it, but I'm too old to know what it is. But you know what I'm talking about, right? They'll take like a classic song and then mix it with like rap and call it something else. Well, guess what? You have to pay a royalty on that because you took somebody else's work. I really think this is all really silly, and we should just move on. Because,
okay. Yeah. Before we go too much further, you have been talking about something over the last nearly 4 years of this show, and that you've really ramped it up recently, and you nailed it. And I want to get to that really quickly.
Awesome turkeys.
But first, let's mention Linux Academy right here at the top. Linux Academy is such a great fit for the Coder Radio audience that I think we should probably just stop right here and mention them. If you could go to linuxacademy.com/coders, you can get the first 30 days for $9. And that is a great deal because this is an unbelievable platform. It's an educational platform built by extremely enthusiastic Linux users and developers and trainers that came together and created the Linux Academy. They now have 2,381 videos with their self-paced courses, downloadable, comprehensive study guides, stuff you can listen to offline and read offline and keep for yourself, scenario-based labs that put you in the middle of an everyday task that gives you the confidence if you're going to go charge somebody or claim you can do something, or if you just want to challenge yourself and learn. You have the confidence that you actually know how to use it in the real world. Instructor mentoring is available, and if you think about some of the topics they cover, that's unbelievable. The Linux Academy obviously covers all the basics and the advanced topics around Linux, and the certification courses for that. But they also cover tons of different development possibilities. Python, Ruby, PHP, Mike's favorite, and others. Also integrating with the AWS service, learning to use containers and Nginx. It's pretty great. They have graded server exercises, also the Red Hat certification courses, the OpenStack environment, and Android development. Why didn't I mention that? They have Android development courseware as well. In-depth resources are available to you, a community stacked full of Jupiter Broadcasting members, enhanced learning plans, and they come with your own x86 server when you need it. They spin it up and give you SSH. Go check them out at linuxacademy.com/coders. Going there and learning more about them helps us, and signing up really does. linuxacademy.com/coders. It's such a legitimately perfect fit for our audience. So much better than all of the other online training resources out there. All of the other ones that, most of these things, for years, were just barely features they strived for. And now some of them are finally getting on board. But it really requires an entire shift. And that's where Linux Academy started. linuxacademy.com/coders. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Okay, Mike, you totes called this, and it's hitting one of the bigger names that we all know, one of the unicorns, as some call them out there, Dropbox.
Unicorn blood slushy, sorry.
Yeah, Dropbox is cutting a bunch of perks, and it's telling people to brace for impact, just like a bunch of other Silicon Valley startups are. The change of Dropbox... Get this. Last valued at $10 billion. Wow, $10 billion for storing other people's stuff. It shows even the most high, which of course they do a lot more than that. Shows even the most richly valued, highly funded startups are no longer immune to the changing tides of Silicon Valley. A weaker VC funding environment and freezing tech IPO market have forced startups of all sizes to take cost-cutting measures and focus more on profits, signifying a shift in the free spending growth at all cost culture that has been spreading through Silicon Valley for years. Now, here's what's happened, Mike. Check this out. This just shows you where they were at. In a company-wide email in March, Dropbox said it was canceling the free shuttle in San Francisco and the gym washing service, not the gym.
Oh boy, the hardship.
Yeah, while pushing back dinner time to 7 p.m. and limiting the number of guests to 5 a month. It was previously unlimited. How
will they go on? How, Chris? How?
Yeah, and it still has this open bar on Fridays. Those changes will have a direct
what was that? What was that last
I said it'll still have.
It's San Francisco Friday. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's got open bars. Whoa, let's go. Those changes will have a direct impact, though, on Dropbox's profitability. So get this.
They were spending that much.
Yeah, well, here's the numbers. The company wrote in an email that the employee perks in total have been costing Dropbox $25,000 a year for each employee.
What?
Yeah, so Dropbox is a 1,500 headcount, so that would basically be about $38 million a year. That's not towards code, not towards marketing. I mean, yeah, making people happy. That's true.
Holy mackerel! I used to think I was extravagant with my, once every 2 weeks, the lunches I would take.
I know. I'm a big roller when I'm helping people fly out here for Linux Fest Northwest. Dropbox isn't the only high-profile startup to unleash company-wide cost-cutting campaigns lately. A number of unicorn startups worth over $1 billion, including Evernote, Jawbone, and Tango, have all gone through some form of cost-cutting, whether it be layoffs, office closures, or reduced employee perks. Prosper, which was valued at $1.9 billion, disclosed that its CEO is going to be foregoing his annual salary this year in addition to reducing the workforce. And like a Tout app, backed by Anderson Horowitz, recently announced that it would not do any paid event sponsorships this year to embrace operational ruthlessness and get closer to profitability.
I love watching people have... You know what, though? I was going to say I love watching them have real business problems, but the open bar did not get cut.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. There is also there was that whole $100,000 Panda that they bought.
Yeah.
Dropbox bought like $100,000 Panda that they have in their office.
Well, here's the thing,
sculpture, not an actual panda.
yeah, because I was gonna say I didn't think you could buy pandas, but is that what keeps employees? The laundry service, like.
I tell you, it would be. Well, I mean, Jupiter Broadcasting does have laundry service. We do have. If you visit the studios, you can do your laundry. JB crew members. Yeah, no, and you know what? The thing is it sets too high of an expectation. So pretty soon it starts to become somebody has to hold out.
It seems like a weird arms race, right?
Yes.
Like not for nothing, they could get everybody a $5,000 raise and save $20,000 per employee a year.
I mean, it really represents how much the investment funding was just wasted, I think.
Just waste, yeah.
And how little priority was put on, well, if we're going to store terabytes of users' data on S3, we better make sure we know how to make that profitable, or however they do. I think they maybe have their own infrastructure now.
I think they have their own. I thought they moved off S3.
Yeah, I think so. But, my point is it is a very expensive business to be in, and that money could be spent on salaries, that money could be spent on...
And I wonder how hard it really is to recruit as one of these well-known companies. I can't imagine, because the argument's always we need to, pamper employees to keep them.
Yeah.
But because if they post a job, they're not getting a couple hundred resumes.
Does it blow your mind that a company like Dropbox could be so large that they could afford to blow almost $40 million a year on gym services and washing services and food services for unlimited guests with an open bar on Friday?
It's really weird. Like these unicorns, in a way, they don't feel like startups, right? They feel like some ungodly thing that doesn't need to turn a profit. But, because they really distort the market in a lot of ways. If you're not worried about actually turning a profit, you might just slash prices to the freaking ground to kill competitors, right?
Yeah, or offer gigabytes of free storage or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So, and I'm a Dropbox user. I like Dropbox. I pay for Dropbox. I just don't understand. I actually think their pricing model could make sense. certainly if they cut the $25,000 perks a year, I don't know why they feel they need that. Because I know plenty of people who are currently looking for work.
Yeah.
Would totally jump at the opportunity to work at Dropbox, right? Punishing interviews or no punishing interviews. So anyway, we'll
move on.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give you a chance to have a little victory lap on there because you've been talking about this VC funding.
When the White Walkers come over the wall, I'm going to be sipping wine and laughing.
Just hold in there, Mr. Dominic. If you can hold in, these guys will start to fall back and have to cut costs and become more competitive. And then by very nature, you will become more competitive. And boom! I'm just saying, there could be hope for the small dev yet. Chat room, don't forget to bang suggest as we go along. I don't think you jerks have give us a single title suggestion. Get ready to talk about Swift. So, Mike, this is sort of feeling a lot like Swiftmas these days. You're a changed man. I see you tweeting about liking Swift. I see you doing code samples. What the heck is going on?
So Chinese hackers got into my Twitter account.
Right. So that makes sense.
No, I may have completed an app in Swift, but let's do a little code on the air. People complain we don't do code on the air, and I'm going to show them why it doesn't work right now. So let's talk about Swift. Everybody emails in Swift, Reddit Swift, Twitter Swift. Let's talk about optional types in Swift and why Swift's handling this may actually be better than Objective-C. So, Chris, can you bring up my wonderful gist?
Energizing, Mr. Dominic. It is up on screen. I am zooming and enhancing.
All right, I'm going to paint a word picture. There is a very attractive man, and there are two files in this GIF. GIF is peanut butter. It is Dominic M/CR204-1 if you want to follow along. So we have a jar jar struct. See, that's a struct, not a class. We're being all Swifty. With a variable called Senate speech, which is a string. Now, at the end of the type string is a question mark. Now, Chris, can you go ahead and read that comment next to the question mark?
The question mark means that Misa might be nil and makes me an optional type. Damn it.
Exactly. All code samples on the show will be done with some sort of jar jar link, by the way. You
are, I love it. This is the perfect troll.
I thought it was a
because not only are you trolling the audience, but you troll me because I had to read that.
Listen, I just want all of you to be trolled effectively. All right, so, and I just realized that there's a typo.
Uh-oh.
Boom. Real time debugging.
I like that.
Fixed. All right, reloaded.
Okay, stand by. Reloading.
So
yep,
we have two yeah, I just accidentally commented a line that wasn't a comment. We have two functions. One is func vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum's leadership. The other is func insane vote of no confidence. Now, what vote of no confidence does is it instantiates a bool called isSith from basically checking if Senate speech, remember our string property, contains the phrase something dog side. Now, yes, this will get people to stop emailing me about doing more code. The question mark on Senate speech right before the dot contained string tells the compiler that Senate speech is in fact an optional, and that we are confirming it as an optional, and we are not super sure that it's not null, right? In fact, in this case, I have purposely made sure that it is nil. So what would you think would happen, Chris? You instantiate something, you call a method called contain string on a nil variable.
Boy, I would have to say, Misa not sure, Mr. Dominic.
Well, in Swift, if it's optional, it will not crash, actually, if you do it the way I did it in vote of no confidence.
Okay, now, is this, you say in Swift, now is this something that would go differently in Objective-C?
It would. So if we scroll down a bit to CR204.m.
CR204-2.m.
Thank you. We will see the same thing. This is Objective-C. I've truncated some of this stuff. But we see a method, vote of no confidence. Now you'll notice that this one has if Senate speech does not equal nil, then it puts the assignment. The reason for that is the question mark after Senate speech and before calling the method contain string actually, in terms of like what it does functionally, does a nil check for you. So that's how Swift optionals are basically protecting you from yourself, right? So what will happen here is if the sentence speech is nil, isIth will actually be invalid, but it won't crash, and it will let you know that it's nil. So you won't get a runtime error.
Yeah.
However, those of us who are a little insane, such as the great Jar Jar Binks,
Sure.
would call a function called insane vote of no confidence.
I see this, yeah.
We're back in the Swift one, where notice that my question mark has become an exclamation point.
Yes, I do.
And notice that the text we're checking for is now Misa gonna burn this mother down.
Yeah, I do. Yes, I like that a lot.
The exclamation point does something called forced unwrapping. Now, what that is it's saying, Swift compiler, I know that this is an optional type, but I pinky swear, guarantee, double dog say that there is a value there and it's not nil. So just go ahead, don't bother. Of course it is nil. So it doesn't do crash, which is the expected behavior of the sample. Now, if we go down to our Objective-C version of that, it's the same as just doing it without checking for nil. Now, what is the point in this really convoluted but wonderfully classic Star Wars exercise?
Other than giving Jar Jar a chance to stretch his coding fingers out?
Chris, if I had more time this weekend, Jar Jar was up to the IRC. It's to show what I, so far, have found one of my favorite features in Swift, optional types that aren't terrible. Because I cannot tell you how much Objective-C code I write that's not nil, if variable isn't nil, if blah, 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 nil checks, nil check, nil check. All day long I'm checking for nil. This is a succinct, one-line, easy peasy, standard way to do it. There's a few other little things in here, but I don't think we need to worry about them too much. For instance, the let syntax actually makes it a immutable variable, so you can't reassign that isIth value. Again, more for safety, right? So the idea here is that Swift wants to be a safe language, where Objective-C you could just do whatever the hell you want.
I guess I've heard that term a lot. Swift is a safer language, and I guess what that really means is there's a lot of little things that make it a safer language. It's not like, I mean, I guess there's some big things, but
this is one of the primary things, right? Objective-C has a very unique relationship with nil values, in that it's one of the few, the proud, the languages that let you throw nil around, and it's totally cool with that as soon as you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Swift does not, unless you explicitly say that you're sure pinky swear something's not nil. It will assume it is, assuming you use the syntax I used here.
This is actually...
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, this is just actually fairly illuminating because as someone who doesn't really have the inclination to actually jump in, but just hears all the time these things about Swift, this is actually kind of interesting to see a real-world example of it. I just linked it in the chat room if the chat room wants to take a look.
Yeah, take a look. I mean, this is obviously a super contrived, though really classic children's example with the great character Jar Jar Binks. But it really does go over a couple concepts that are pretty important. Like, one thing we can talk about very briefly is that Jar Jar is not a class. Jar Jar is a struct. And generally speaking, I'm finding in Swift you are better off using structs instead of classes because things get weird. And we'll talk about that, I guess, a little bit in the next quote-unquote segment. But yeah, it's I have to say my general impressions after doing the samples and finishing this project that I'm going to talk about in a minute in Swift is that there is a lot of little, I will call it nanny state functionality in Swift where everything has to be handled blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, it's done in such a clean way that you end up writing less code. And, I'm a chief offender at the not checking for nil problem all the time. So this, I think, is actually really good. I also would caution you, if you're going to jump into Swift, unless you have a really good reason, things should probably be optionals. And you should probably be using structs instead of classes most of the time. Now, that's a broad generalization. I know you will email me why I'm wrong. But there are the majority of the cases, unless you're super sure something's not can ever be nil, it should be an optional. And that's my story.
You created a thread on the subreddit for this too, right? So there is already a thread. I could add that to the show notes. Or no?
I did not create a thread.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe I saw something about a code sample in there. Well, here's what I would suggest is we'll have a link to the gist in the show notes, and then there will be the post for 204 at coderadio.reddit.com if people want. There you go. That'd be just a fine spot for it. I love it, Mr. Dominic. It's pretty funny. Oh, you totally got me because I hadn't read ahead. So when I when I read that comment,
I figured out how to get you with the Jar Jar Binks speak.
That was good. That was good. All right. Before we go any further, I got to tell you about DigitalOcean, longtime sponsor here on the Coder Radio program. Use our promo code CODERDIGITAL, one word, lowercase over there. And man, you will love it. So you get a $10 credit when you use promo code CODERDIGITAL. Now, their basic rig starts at $5 a month. $5 a month, that's great because you'll get a 2-month free trial to try out DigitalOcean. You can go spin up an Ubuntu box, a Fedora box, FreeBSD, CentOS, CoreOS, the Debs. They got a bunch of great distros. But what I really love, I mean, for me, when I'm doing something for testing, I love using the Ubuntu with Docker pre-installed image. It gets in seconds. And the thing that I love about that is if I need to nuke and pave because, screw it, this doesn't work. I go back there, I hit one button, right back, got a fresh Ubuntu box with Docker already set up. And that's a big deal, too, because you want to make sure you're getting Docker from the right source. And the DigitalOcean image gets it directly from the Docker project with their GP key in there, making sure it's the right one. All that stuff's taken care of for you automatically. It's really nice. I mean, they've thought of a lot of the small details, and that really shows in their interface. They have an amazing interface with a fantastic API with lots of good apps already written around it that you can just take advantage of or just write one yourself. Super simple stuff. They have a new command line tool that's really nice, uses that API. We experiment with it ourselves here because we have a couple of new droplets that we're using for different live stream purposes where we go out to Scale Engine and Ustream and YouTube is the one that's probably the newest. And then also our audio stream, etc. We use different DigitalOcean droplets for the different destinations when we want to turn them on and off. It just becomes so simple when it's $5 a month. And it's only charged when it's running. We just turn them on and off. So when we're live, we turn them on, and then we light up a few places where we're not normally live at. And then when the show ends, we shut it down. And they've got this great command line utility to manage all of this. So it's not like you have to even fire up the web browser if you don't want to. It's really nice. So just use the promo code CODERDIGITAL, and you can spin up a rig in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto, and Germany. You'll be amazed because they're all SSDs, so they're all super fast with great CPUs. Tons of transfer. Starts at a terabyte. Tier 1 bandwidth. It's really nice. DigitalOcean.com. Just use the promo code CODERDIGITAL and then go get started. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Coder Digital. Okay, so Mr. Dominic, you kind of put your monies where your mouth is, for as the phrase goes, and actually created yourself a little Swift project. I'm curious what you started over there.
So I, over the weekend, wrote a little Mac app in Swift.
Aw, you wrote a little Mac app.
And AppKit. Very little utility, nothing huge. I'm probably going to release it just because I think other people will have had the need. I just got to get some, graphics because it has no app icon. What I found was really interesting. So I got it done really fast and with very few bugs, which is nothing to do with Swift and just because I'm awesome. I'm kidding.
No, it's cool.
There were a few, how could I say this? Awkward points, right? For instance, anytime I had to do any kind of UI code, Swift felt weirdly foreign in AppKit there. And I'm not sure if this is just my impression. I'm not sure if this is an AppKit versus UIKit thing. So I also started a project in UIKit over the weekend. To be fair to Swift, AppKit's really awkward to begin with because it's old as crap. And there's like a million years of legacy in there. And it's, and this is someone who's sold Mac software before, written plenty of Mac apps. It's just, AppKit's a different place. Having said that, I finally got the opportunity to use some of the new niceties. If you remember my Mac app from a few years ago was before Apple introduced storyboards or any of that kind of stuff.
It feels like a totally different era of Mac desktop development.
It really was actually, because now AppKit has storyboards. And I think that had a lot to do with the efficiency gain, just because the tooling was the same, right?
For sure, dude.
Like there was an NS View controller instead of me having to deal with the crazy legacy view system on OS iOS 10. One thing that is unfortunate about this app is that it cannot be sandboxed. So that's disappointing.
What is it? Do you want to say what it's doing?
Yeah, I'm going to wait till next week because I'm just going to release it. I'm going to do a little, I think I might just release it either very cheaply or free for the Code Radio audience because I have a feeling some people have had a similar need than I do for this.
So no sandboxing means automatically no App Store.
Right, automatically. And that's the biggest part of the delay. I was hoping to kind of just release it today either for free or not. I'm thinking I might just do like $5 or less. But I have to deal with payment processing now, right? It may not be worth it for me to get you the binary, to be totally honest.
Yeah, that's really kind of a bummer because the one thing I really like about the app stores in general is when you set up a machine, it makes reloading your applications very straightforward, and I honestly have a pretty good trust level that Apple's going to do a good implementation of protecting my credit card information, so I don't really mind them having it on file. But everybody else I have to buy from is yet another person that I'm trusting they've set up everything correctly. And I'm not saying anything about your setup because you'd probably use something like Stripe or something like that. But everybody has different incantations they have done for taking my payments, and that makes me uneasy these days too. So one of the other things I do like about the App Store approach is one centralized payment. But that said, every single time in the studio that I open up an application on one of the 2 Macs we still have remaining, and I have to enter my damn iCloud password before I can run the application, it really frustrates me. Oftentimes I'm trying to get something on the live stream and I need access to something quickly, and before that application will even execute, I have to authenticate to iCloud for some reason. And this is happening more and more in the last 6 months.
Well, it's funny because I'm working on another project for myself that I'm going to be releasing. And it was easier to implement freaking OneDrive than iCloud.
That doesn't surprise me either, really.
I find that shocking, to be honest with you. I find that this is a native a native iOS project we're talking about.
That's pretty pathetic, really. Yeah. I give you this though, so I appreciate that it's a tough choice to make, and I know I've heard from other developers that face the same thing. So,
yeah. Well, the real challenge is you actually nailed it on the head. I have a Stripe account for Buccaneer. Stripe is kind of a great, if you're looking for payment processing, by the way, people, I would love some ad money. Just
really, Stripe, what's up? Come on.
It's a really great API, RESTful API. They have a good reputation for security. You can be confident in your customer.
Oh wait,
data.
This is why they don't buy ads, because we just give all this away for free. This is the milk. You're giving the milk away right now, man. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Sorry. But there's one. When I released the Mac version of CodeJournal way back in 2010 or 12 or whatever it was.
Man, this show's old.
The show's really old. Really, really old. I used a system called Gumroad, which I may actually go back to for this because they handle the whole, hey, Chris, you bought it on your Gmail account and you got a new Mac and now I need to send you a new one, but I really don't want you to rip me off. One, because I'm selling it for like $5, which is nothing. And two, I'd like to not get ripped off, right?
Yeah, that was a good service. I tried that out for you, and I liked it.
I think I'm going to go back to them for this only because the infrastructure to actually build a licensing system or to buy one is just not worth it, right? Delivering licensing system.
Totally.
And I'd rather totally lay that off on somebody else, especially for something like this. I mean, if it was like a $50 per unit app, if it was, I might say, okay. The market for this, I think, is going to be really, really small. So I would be surprised if I even break like $200 or $300.
So as you're starting something from beginning to end, from scratch to completion, what did you have some major takeaways and differences? I mean, your other primary experience here in the past would have been Objective-C, just kind of on a high level, not necessarily talking about the App Store aspect of it or the sandboxing aspect of it, but what about just high level differences between Swift and Objective-C for creating this thing?
I think that in a lot of ways, Swift is less, there's less ceremony, right? Your code to do the same thing is a lot shorter. Now, I don't know if that means better, because some of it, is a little cryptic. Like, I'm not sure I love the syntax of the question marks and the exclamation points. I really don't like symbols in my code too much. I much prefer, words, right? English words. I'm a little concerned that, first of all, I'm not using all the features of Swift. By any
Well, sure.
means,
I mean, sure, you're just kind of getting started, ramping up, really.
My goals with this project were to do two things. One, I needed this thing for myself anyway. Two, I wanted to ship something in Swift that was not object-oriented. I wanted to, I mean, it is still kind of object-oriented, but it's not, it's not using classes. I'm taking advantage of, basically, I'm not writing Objective-C in Swift, right? Which I definitely succeeded at, but I don't know. It's really hard for me to say that Swift is qualitatively or quantitatively better than Objective-C, because I don't think it's true. And I don't think and I no longer think Objective-C is necessarily better. I would say that for some of the deeper Mac APIs, there's a whole lot of documentation in Objective-C.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
not Swift.
Yeah.
So the biggest challenge, to be totally honest with you, was translating this really old Mac API into Swift, because the only sample I had to work with was one of Apple's old docs in Objective-C. And the reason this API doesn't have an update is because it's not allowed on the App Store, because it breaks sandboxing. So, and it breaks it in a way where it just reads the file system. That's all it does. But the way it does it is, it reads your bin directory, basically.
At Linux Fest Northwest, I talked to a couple of different people involved with GNOME, people that are in very important positions. And one of them was interviewed on LAS. And they're all talking about sandboxing on the GNOME desktop as a way to deliver software, mostly, as a way they look at it. You would actually like this a lot, Mike, because their big perspective on it is developers want to control the relationship with the end user, and they want to distribute the software directly if possible. Now, they can distribute it through GNOME software or through their website, but they want to make it so that way, essentially, it's like some sort of file system image or, I don't know, a bundle of some type that goes into a container or a sandbox. But they're talking about sandboxing not so much as a security thing, although that's definitely part of it, but also just as an application delivery thing on Linux, where you'd have everything sort of all in one package, and it couldn't necessarily get to different aspects on the file system. And I wonder how well they're going to be able to pull this off, because the Linux desktop traditionally, everything you can get to everything that you have access to as a user. If you're user 1000, anything that user 1000 or the group that 1000 is in can access. And once you become root, you can access everything. And so the concept of sandboxing, I think, is going to be particularly foreign to Linux users on the desktop. And so I'm watching the Mac desktop just fail miserably, because you are so far from the only guy who can't go into the App Store because of sandboxing. Just about every dev really has issues.
But, I mean, let's be fair, right? I tend to release developer tools, or at least very small developer utilities, when I do on the Mac, right? So, CodeJournal in 2010 was sandboxed, but it was sandboxed because all it was a freaking Git client. And not Git like a Git client, a GitHub status thing that, at the time was useful. The types of things that I'm working on now are very focused on helping people set up new dev machines, right? So the bet I'm making on this is, one, I need it. Two, will you give me $5 to save you hired a new junior developer and you don't want it to take 3 hours for them to set up their machine? And you're Mac people, so you don't want to run a script. You'd rather just have a widget to do it. That's really the bet I'm making with some of these things. And I think it's actually not in Apple's interest to allow this type of app on the App Store, because basically, to hit your bin directory, I do need, that's root, right?
Now, that's never going to happen. Never going to happen.
Granted, the API that I'm using in OS 10 actually is fairly safe. But at some level, you do have to trust me. The other side of the coin is, this type of application isn't super viable in terms of a mass market. It's, I'll be honest with you, it's to help, let's say, a new Rails developer get set up on their Mac who doesn't know how to do stuff, right? Or it's to help a project manager do some minor, cleaning of a project before they send it to a customer that doesn't know how to work the command line, which isn't bad. Those people need tools too. and I'm really hoping they'll pay $5. But if they, and by the way, I decided the price point just now on the air.
I like it though. It seems like a good price point.
Well, it seems like the lowest price point that makes having to occasionally respond to support emails worth it, right?
Barely.
Barely.
I mean, you got to be honest with yourself. That's barely. But you got to figure, maybe if there's another version and they buy a future one, then yes.
Yeah. I mean, but
if they bought like 2 or 3 versions eventually, then yeah. I tell you what, every single day that goes by, my time becomes more and more valuable. And I don't mean to sound like one of those guys. But I don't have time for anything at all, and so I'm too busy. It is getting ridiculous, and so if something needs a little bit of my time, it's gotta. It's rough. That is rough. Like I got to reload on my main laptop. I have this. I love the Apollo from Entraware, and I upgraded the M.2 SATA drive in there, and it died on me. I don't know if it's the upgrade that died or if the slot died or what, but regardless, now I have to figure out and reload my laptop. To set up your laptop just right so right now it's just sitting over there because I haven't had time. I'm going to go get to it this afternoon after my next show.
Right.
It's just it's a bummer. I tell you what. So yeah, I'd say make sure you set it at a price point where you're not resentful. So if you feel like $5 is it, then yeah, I'd say that's right.
Well, I think $5 is it. I mean, again, this is not going to be the next, oh my God, interview me on YouTube as, app development star. This is just, I wrote an app, I needed it, and because I'd like to get $5, I'm going to put it up publicly. Yeah. And because I think it will be useful to a certain market.
So before we run, as fathers, I thought this would be fun. Now, this is totally nostalgic, but this was by Nicholas Buys, and he said, my oldest son, Noah, just turned 7 3 months ago. He loves Minecraft, but he also, has just been getting interested in games in general. And his dad, about 5 months ago, went to a London Dare, I guess, which is a game dev competition where they create games. He comes back, he's showing off the game to the family, and the son wants to learn how to code. He racks his brain and comes up with QBasic as the way to start. He says, yes, QBasic. It's a terrible procedural language. It introduces one to the concepts widely considered harmful, uses awkward syntax for implicit declarations, is not case sensitive, I don't remember that, is non-zero based, etc. The list goes on. But he loves it, and the kids have been loving it. He said, I installed QBasic on my son's 11-inch HP stream today, having to hack a DOS box to get a manual installation. He double-clicked on the icon on his desktop, and in a split second, we were in the IDE greeted with introduction screen. And now these kids writing, of course,
takes me back.
He started with Hello World. I know. I started with QBasic, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. So maybe that's why I have a soft spot for this particular story too.
Yeah. No, oh my God, I remember having.
It's a really good story.
The ANSI, what was it? Like the characters try to make a rocket ship or something. All the stupid little projects. Yeah. It was so good.
Yeah, his son ends up making a game, which is pretty cute.
That's awesome. So I have a quick promo.
Oh yeah.
So I was out on paternity leave, and I have a Rails developer who, due to a scheduling snafu while I'm gone, may have to be benched, which is bad. So I am saying if you have either HTML5, i.e. Cordova or Ionic mobile project, or a Ruby on Rails web development project you need done, reach out to Buccaneer Tech. If I can get this guy on a project within, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks, I am willing to cut a deal.
And what would be the best way to reach out to Buccaneer Tech?
If you go to buccaneertech.com, there's a thing that pops up. Just fill that out.
There you go. Did you hear that? I don't know if you heard that. That was endorsed by Mr. Obama.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, there he is.
Yes.
Yeah, there he is. Yeah, so, and of course, there also is the Twitter.
Woo.
So you can follow, give your Twitter handles out real quick there, Mike. Come on now.
There's Buccaneer Tech on Twitter, but there's also Dominucco, Dominucco. So
if you need a little development work done, that could be a good deal. That could be a little...
Just stroke it a little bit.
Put it this way, it will be a sweetheart of a deal.
Well, I'm excited to hear more about the app next week.
Yep.
All right. Well, Mr. Dominic, if there's anything else, is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap up? Before we get out?
I think we're good and on time. So bonus points.
And the new family's doing well. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's
very
good.
well.
Good.
Very well. Although I have to say, my son is. Should I even say this on the air?
Sure. Now you have to. I mean,
he took to the Surface Pro, my wife's Surface Pro.
Oh
It's in her blood. She was a Microsoft.
Oh,
I corrupted her.
Oh, wait, this could corrupt his hipster tendencies. This could corrupt them.
He might just like whip out an Access terminal one day and be like, "Oh, be basic, baby."
Stay tuned for further developments. Catch us live on Mondays. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar for live times, jblive.tv for that live stream and that chat room where you can help title the show and interact with us and catch more of the show on the live stream. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of Coda Radio, and we'll see you right back here next week.